In the earlier episode, we had discussed about the existence of God. And in another one, I tried to explain how do we worship God. Today I would like to take this discussion even further. Whenever we try to imagine God or try to conceptualize God, instead of, as Bible says, God creates man in His image, we human beings create God in our image. And that is where the entire folly lies. That is where we completely create a travesty of the God concept. We all have forms and God is formless. We all have limited existence and God is all pervasive, entire universe. And so on and so forth. And therefore, to conceptualize God and to create a God in our own imagination literally means that we place God outside of us. If God is all pervasive, God is right inside of me, outside of me. But if we want to relate to a God, commune with such a God, the only place is my body, my heart, my soul, my mind. That is where we both exist, and that is where we can commune. I can commune with my Creator God. And God is the energy, cosmic energy of truth, love, compassion and justice. And God is also the embodiment of all bliss. Now if we try to get these attributes in our conceptualization of God properly, then it becomes very easy, rather very practical to worship or relate to such a God. Because the moment we put the God outside of us, we make a caricature of God. We create a temple or a mosque or a church or a gurdwara or something religious place, and we call that place holy place, sacred place. Now if somebody has to pollute that, somebody creates some pollution in that temple or a mosque by throwing some alcohol or some meat or some such other things, even a cigarette butt, then we all get upset and we say, you have polluted our sacred place, holy place. If they remove even a brick, with the intention of damaging that sacred place, then even quarrels may take place and we may harm each other, sometimes kill each other. Now that concept of sacredness, how do we derive? Because we have placed God outside of us. God is there in everything. But for us, the most important is the most sacred and the most precious temple, and which is my body, and for you, your body, your mind and your soul. If we understand this particular logic, then we need to just think of how sacred or how precious is my body compared to all the religious places, all the holy places which are made of brick and mortar, cement and iron. Now put them all together and compare with your own body or with the living, throbbing, pulsating body of any other human being. And you will find that that living body, either it is yours or somebody else's, is far more sacred, far more precious than all the so-called holy places, sacred places of all the religions put together. Now, if this is a simple logic, Why don't we understand it? Why do we have to put God outside of us? By putting it outside of us, we immediately play into the hands of a priestcraft. That priest is never a prophet. A priest is supposed to perpetuate the status quo. A prophet is one who challenges the status quo. He is like a rebel, or she is like a rebel, and want to change the existing way or mode of worship. All great prophets, their message has been stop this nonsense. They didn't really say that I want to start a new religion. No. They wanted to do away with the existing form of religion, religiosity, or God worship. So they rebelled against all of those existing forms, and therefore they were called prophets. But once the prophet becomes popular among the poor, among the disadvantaged people, because he speaks the truth, and truth is power. And that way, the truth becomes so powerful that it draws hundreds and thousands of people, and people become the followers. Unfortunately, at that point of time, either the prophet passes away, or even his or her lifetime, something happens, and the clever, these so-called clergy or priesthood, they step into this whole show, and they capture it, including the prophet, his or her message, and create a religion out of it. All these organized religions, all these institutionalized religions have been corrupted in this manner. That is, in essence, if you see, the quintessence of all religions is very sublime, universal, spiritual message. But in practice, when you see the church or any temple or any such thing, there you will find completely corrupted way. And these priests and whoever they are, the custodians of the Creator, they appropriate to themselves all the respect and sometimes even the wealth and so much of power, control over not just the body, also on the mind. So mind conditioning becomes an instrument in their hands. And that mind conditioning plays its very vicious role at the time of our birth. The moment we are born, we are immediately pounced upon and told, you are a Hindu or a Muslim or a Christian or a Sikh or a Jew or a Baha'i or something. Because our parents happen to belong to that type of religion and religiosity. We are young and innocent. Just imagine a 10-day or 10-month-old child. How can that child be so aware to decide for oneself what his or her religion should be? There is no way. The child is not even allowed to grow up to the age of 18. Much before that, the child's mind is conditioned, indoctrinated, brainwashed into all those rituals and dogmas and superstitions and miracle mongering. And this way a religion gets created. Out of that religious congregation, where people gather in blind faith, in sheer superstition. But by going to that place By praying in this manner, their wishes will be fulfilled, their problems will be solved. Now, this is some sort of a quid pro quo, and for that, they make some donations. And these priests and others go between, they enjoy the offerings and whatever is given by way of some charity or things like that. And they exploit their laity. They do not allow themselves to think for themselves or to choose for themselves which religion is better. If they are born a Hindu, can they easily choose Islam? Or if they are born Muslim, can they easily choose Hinduism? If they see something good in it? No. There are very strict barriers. And in this way we find the whole institutionalization, organization of religions. And once a religion, the main body gets organized, institutionalized, then there are splits. Then there are subsects. Once you make it into a sectarian approach, not universal approach, then you find different sects, not on some fundamental principles, but on dress, on the way you wear a turban or you put up, wear a moustache or something like that, which are outwardly. And therefore, we should reject all of these religions and their symbols and everything. They have nothing to do with spiritual values. Spiritual values are universal. They allow you all the freedom to dress the way you like, the hairstyle you like, or whatever. Human freedom is there. But the priest will tell you, no, you are a Shia, you should dress like this. And if you are a Sunni, you should dress like this. If you are a Deobandi, if you are a Barelvi or somebody, Ahle Hadith. So for every sect, similarly, the Hindus get divided into caste system by birth. And why? God doesn't create a caste system. God creates us all equal. We are born equal. The same sun is shining over high caste and low caste. And the same air we are breathing. The same raindrops are there. Not a single leaf in the world discriminates on grounds of birth. And yet we create all these discriminations. Very ugly discriminations. I call them structural violence, hatred. And therefore, the reason why this caste system is created is because of the stranglehold of the priest. And they create their own shastras, their own religious scriptures, so that people will not understand or question. And they succeed in brainwashing that this was said by such person and that was said by such a person. And they create and take control of the prophet. The prophet's real message, is thrown by the wayside, and the priest leads the way. And the priest is never, as I had said earlier, for a change, real change, transformation. A priest is always for some sort of a status quo. So the ruling elite or the ruling power mechanism is very happy with the priest, never with a prophet. Because prophet is one who speaks truth to power. And truth is something devastating. And truth means love, compassion, and deep, profound urge for justice. And because there is injustice all around us, a priest will never question that systemic injustice. that systemic violence, structural violence which is there. He would try to sanctify them, try to adjust them, and play upon them to continue his stranglehold of priesthood. So, priest is really not a real custodian. There are very few exceptional priests, but by and large, the priests are one who completely have corrupted, perverted even, I would say, the original message of the prophets, or even I would say the message. So, this way I find the religions have played a very dirty role, ugly role. And unless and until we get rid of this religious influence and we embrace this beautiful concept of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the whole world is one family. And we are all one family because we are all born human. All human beings constitute one jati, one race, whether black or white, whether a boy or a girl, no gender discrimination, and the rich and poor. There can be no such hiatus. There can be no such inequality as it exists today. We are all entitled to equal opportunities in life, equal care, medical care and health care, and everything, so on and so forth. And justice means justice unlimited. Because God is justice unlimited, we have to fight for more and better quality of justice. And this, as I had said earlier, we have to extend our love and compassion for other creatures also. So friends, I will end this dialogue here. And I expect you to raise some questions, send them on my email. I will try to answer them. These are some of the questions which I got through some of my friends' email. And therefore, I would urge you to continue this discussion so that we can further deepen our proactive social spirituality. We have to be proactive when we say truth, love, compassion and justice. These are cosmic sort of energy of God inside of us. Then we should be committed. We should feel challenged when there is anything untruth around us or injustice around us, discrimination around us, particularly on grounds of birth. Rich and poor divide has to go. This is the most fundamental aspect. We are all equal and the Mother Earth belongs to each one of us. The planet belongs to each one of us equally. Nobody can grab or just take over a lion's share and the others are reduced to landless and others are reduced to poverty and penury. Now we will continue this discussion, but in the meantime, I would urge you to raise your questions, send them, and we will try to answer them one by one. Thank you all very much.